Daniel. In the 3rd year of the reign of Jehoiakim king of Judah, Nebuchadnezzar king of Babylon came to Jerusalem and besieged it. And Adonai gave Jehoiakim king of Judah into his hand, with part of the vessels of the temple of Elohim that he carried into the land of Shinar to the house of his Elohim, and he brought the vessels into the treasury of his Elohim. And the king spoke to Ashpenaz the master of his eunuchs so that he should bring certain ones of the children of Israel, and of the king's offspring, and of the nobles, children in whom was no blemish, but well-favored, and skillful in all wisdom, and cunning in knowledge, and understanding science, and such as had ability in them to stand in the king's palace, and whom they might teach the learning and the tongue of the Chaldeans. And the king appointed them a daily provision of the king's food, and of the wine that he drank, so nourishing them 3 years so that at the end of that time they might stand before the king. Now among these were of the children of Judah, Daniel, Hananiah, Mishael, and Azariah, and the prince of the eunuchs appointed new names, because he gave to Daniel the name of Belteshazzar, and to Hananiah, of Shadrach, and to Mishael, of Meshach, and to Azariah, of Abednego. But Daniel purposed in his heart that he would not defile himself with the portion of the king's food, nor with the wine that he drank, therefore he requested of the prince of the eunuchs that he might not defile himself. Now Elohim had brought Daniel into favor and compassion with the prince of the eunuchs. And the prince of the eunuchs said to Daniel, I fear my master the king, who has appointed your food and your drink, for why should he see your faces worse looking than the children that are of your age? Then you will make me endanger my head to the king. Then Daniel replied to Melzar, whom the prince of the eunuchs had set over Daniel, Hananiah, Mishael, and Azariah, test your slaves, I ask you for 10 days, and let them give us vegetables to eat, and water to drink. Then let our appearances be looked upon before you, and the appearance of the children that eat of the portion of the king's food, and as you see, deal with your slaves. So he consented to them in this matter, and tested them 10 days. And at the end of 10 days their countenances appeared fairer and fatter in flesh than all the children that did eat the portion of the king's food. So Melzar took away the portion of their food, and the wine that they should drink, and gave them vegetables. As for these 4 children, Elohim gave them knowledge and skill in all learning and wisdom, and Daniel had understanding in all visions and dreams. Now at the end of the days that the king had said he should bring them in, then the prince of the eunuchs brought them in before Nebuchadnezzar. And the king communed with them, and among them all was found none like Daniel, Hananiah, Mishael, and Azariah, therefore they stood before the king. And in all matters of wisdom and understanding, that the king inquired of them, he found them 10 times better than all the magicians and astrologers that were in all his realm. And Daniel continued even to the 1st year of King Cyrus. And in the 2nd year of the reign of Nebuchadnezzar, Nebuchadnezzar dreamed dreams, in which his mind was troubled, and his sleep escaped him. And the king gave word to call for the scribes, and for the enchanters, and for the sorcerers, and for the Chaldeans, to declare to the king his dreams. And they came in and stood before the king, and the king said to them, I have dreamed a dream, and my mind was troubled to know the dream. Then the Chaldeans spoke to the king in Aramaic, O king, live for long times, tell your slaves the dream, and we will show the interpretation. The king answered and said to the Chaldeans, The thing has gone from me, if you will not make known to me the dream with its interpretation, you will be cut in pieces, and your houses will be made a dunghill. But if you show the dream and its interpretation, you will receive of me gifts and rewards and great honor, therefore show me the dream and its interpretation. They answered again and said, Let the king tell his slaves the dream, and we will show the interpretation of it. The king answered and said, I know of a certainty that you would gain the time, because you see the thing has gone from me. But if you will not make known to me the dream, there is but one decree for you. Because you have prepared lying and corrupt words to speak before me, until the time is changed, therefore tell me the dream, and I will know that you can show me its interpretation. The Chaldeans answered before the king and said, There is not a man upon the earth that can show the king's matter, therefore there is no king, chief or ruler, that asks such things of any magician, astrologer, or Chaldean. And it is a rare thing that the king requires, and there are no others that can show it before the king, except the Elohim, whose dwelling is not with flesh. For this cause the king was angry and very furious, and commanded to destroy all the wise ones of Babylon. And the decree went out that the wise ones should be killed, and they sought Daniel and his fellows to be killed also. Then Daniel answered with counsel and wisdom to Arioch the captain of the king's guard that was gone out to kill the wise ones of Babylon. He answered and said to Arioch the king's captain, Why is the decree so hasty from the king? Then Arioch made the thing known to Daniel. Then Daniel went in, and desired of the king that he would give him time, and that he would show the king its interpretation. Then Daniel went to his house, and made the thing known to Hananiah, Mishael, and Azariah, his companions, that they would desire compassion from the Elohim of the skies concerning this secret, that Daniel and his fellows should not perish with the rest of the wise ones of Babylon. Then was this secret revealed to Daniel in a night vision. Then Daniel blessed the Elohim of the skies. Daniel answered and said, Blessed is the name of Elohim for the ages of time, for wisdom and might are his, and he changes the times and the seasons, he removes kings, and sets up kings, he gives wisdom to the wise, and knowledge to them that know understanding, he reveals the deep mysteries and hidden things, he knows what is in the darkness, and the light abides with him. I thank and praise you, O Elohim of my forefathers, who has given me wisdom and might, and has made known to me now what we desired of you, because you have now made known to us the king's matter. Therefore Daniel went into Arioch, whom the king had appointed to destroy the wise ones of Babylon. He went and said to him, Destroy not the wise ones of Babylon, bring me in before the king, and I will show to the king its interpretation. Then Arioch brought in Daniel quickly before the king and said to him, I have found a man from the captives of Judah that will make known to the king its interpretation. The king answered and said to Daniel, whose name was Belteshazzar, Are you able to make known to me the dream that I have seen, and its interpretation? Daniel answered in the presence of the king and said, The secret that the king has demanded cannot the wise ones, the astrologers, magicians, the soothsayers, show to the king, but there is an Elohim in the skies that reveals secrets, and makes known to the king Nebuchadnezzar what will be in the end of days. Your dream and the visions of your head upon your bed are these. As for you, O king, your thoughts came into your mind upon your bed, what should come to pass hereafter, and he that reveals secrets makes known to you what will come to pass. But as for me, this secret is not revealed to me for any wisdom that I have more than any living, but for their sakes that will make known the interpretation to the king, and that you might know the thoughts of your heart. You, O king, saw and beheld a great image. This great image, whose splendor was surpassing, stood before you, and its form was terrible. This image's head was of fine gold, his breast and his arms of silver, his belly and his thighs of bronze, his legs of iron, his feet part of iron and part of clay. You saw until that a stone was cut out without hands, Urim-Thummim, Czech, which struck the image upon its feet that were of iron and clay, and broke them to pieces. Then was the iron, the clay, the bronze, the silver and the gold, broken to pieces together, and became like the chaff of the summer threshing floors. And the wind carried them away so that no place was found for them, and the stone Urim-Thummim, that struck the image became a great mountain and filled the whole earth. This is the dream, and we will tell its interpretation before the king. You, O king, are a king of kings, because the Elohim of the skies has given you a kingdom, power, strength, and glory. And wherever the children of men dwell, the animals of the field and the fowls of the sky has he given into your hand, and has made you ruler over them all. You are this head of gold. And after you will arise another kingdom inferior to you, and another third kingdom of bronze that will bear rule over all the earth. And the fourth kingdom will be strong as iron, inasmuch as iron breaks in pieces and subdues all things, and as iron that breaks all these, will it break in pieces and bruise. And whereas you saw the feet and toes, part of potter's clay and part of iron, the kingdom will be divided, but there will be in it of the strength of the iron, inasmuch as you saw the iron mixed with miry clay. And as the toes of the feet were part of iron and part of clay, so the kingdom will be partly strong, and partly broken. And in that you saw iron mixed with miry clay, they will mingle themselves with the seed of men, but they will not cleave one to another, even as iron is, not mixed with clay. And in the days of these kings will the Elohim of the skies set up a kingdom that will never be destroyed, and the kingdom will not be left to another people, but it will break in pieces and consume all these kingdoms, and it will stand into antiquity. Inasmuch as you saw that the Urim-Thummim stone was cut out of the mountain without hands, and that it broke in pieces the iron, the bronze, the clay, the silver, and the gold. The great Elohim has made known to the king what will come to pass hereafter, and the dream is certain, and its interpretation sure. Then King Nebuchadnezzar fell on his face, and did homage to Daniel, and commanded that they should offer an offering and tranquilizing odors unto him. The king answered to Daniel and said, Of a truth it is, that your Elohim is an Elohim of Elohim, and a Lord of kings, and a revealer of secrets, seeing you could reveal this secret. Then the king made Daniel a great man, and gave him many great gifts, and made him ruler over the whole province of Babylon, and chief of the governors over all the wise ones of Babylon. Then Daniel requested of the king, and he set Shadrach, Meshach, and Abednego over the affairs of the province of Babylon, but Daniel sat in the gate of the king. Nebuchadnezzar the king created an image of gold, whose height was 60 cubits, 90 feet, and the width of it was 6 cubits, 9 feet, he set it up in the plain of Dura, in the province of Babylon. Then Nebuchadnezzar the king sent to gather together the princes, the governors, and the captains, the judges, the treasurers, the counselors, the sheriffs, and all the rulers of the provinces, to come to the dedication of the image that Nebuchadnezzar the king had set up. Then the princes, the governors, and captains, the judges, the treasurers, the counselors, the sheriffs, and all the rulers of the provinces, were gathered together to the dedication of the image that Nebuchadnezzar the king had set up, and they stood before the image that Nebuchadnezzar had set up. Then a herald cried aloud, "To you it is commanded, O people, nations, and languages, that at the time you hear the sound of the cornet, flute, lyre, trigon, harp, bagpipe, and all kinds of music, that you fall down and worship the golden image that Nebuchadnezzar the king has set up, and whoever does not fall down and worship will that same hour be cast into the middle of a burning fiery furnace." Therefore at that time, when all the people heard the sound of the cornet, flute, lyre, trigon, harp, and all kinds of music, all the people, the nations, and the languages, fell down and worshipped the golden image that Nebuchadnezzar the king had set up. Therefore at that time certain Chaldeans came near, and accused the Jews. They spoke and said to King Nebuchadnezzar, "O king, live for antiquity. You, O king, have made a decree, that every man that will hear the sound of the cornet, flute, lyre, trigon, harp, and bagpipe, and all kinds of music, will fall down and worship the golden image, and whoever falls not down and worships, that he should be cast into the middle of a burning fiery furnace. There are certain Jews who you have set over the affairs of the province of Babylon, Shadrach, Meshach, and Abednego. These men, O king, have not regarded you, they serve not your Elohim, nor worship the golden image that you have set up." Then Nebuchadnezzar in his rage and fury commanded to bring Shadrach, Meshach, and Abednego. Then they brought these men before the king. Nebuchadnezzar spoke and said to them, "Is it true, O Shadrach, Meshach, and Abednego, do you not serve my Elohim, nor worship the golden image that I have set up? Now if you are ready that at what time you hear the sound of the cornet, flute, lyre, trigon, harp, and bagpipe, and all kinds of music, you fall down and worship the image that I have created. But if you worship not, you will be cast that same hour into the middle of a burning fiery furnace, and who is that Elohim that will deliver you out of my hands?" Shadrach, Meshach, and Abednego answered and said to the king, "O Nebuchadnezzar, we are not needing to defend ourselves in this matter. If it be so, our Elohim whom we serve is able to deliver us from the burning fiery furnace, and he will deliver us out of your hand, O king. But if not, be it known to you, O king, that we will not serve your Elohim, nor worship the golden image that you have set up." Then was Nebuchadnezzar full of fury, and the form of his visage was changed against Shadrach, Meshach, and Abednego. Therefore he spoke, he answered and said to heat the furnace 7 times above what it is seen to be heated. And he commanded the mightiest men that were in his army to bind Shadrach, Meshach, and Abednego, and to cast them into the burning fiery furnace. Then these men were bound in their coats, their tunics, and their hats, and their other garments, and were cast into the middle of the burning fiery furnace. Therefore because the king's commandment was urgent, and the furnace exceeding hot, the flame of the fire killed those men that took up Shadrach, Meshach, and Abednego. And these 3 men, Shadrach, Meshach, and Abednego, fell down bound into the middle of the burning fiery furnace. Then Nebuchadnezzar the king was astonished, and rose up in haste and spoke, and said to his counselors, "Did not we cast 3 men bound into the middle of the fire?" They answered and said to the king, "True, O king." He answered and said, "Lo, I see 4 men loose, walking in the middle of the fire, and they have not been hurt, and the form of the 4th is like the son of Elohim." Then Nebuchadnezzar came near to the mouth of the burning fiery furnace, and spoke, and said, "Shadrach, Meshach, and Abednego, you slaves of the Most High Elohim, come out and come here." Then Shadrach, Meshach, and Abednego came out of the middle of the fire. And the princes, governors, and captains, and the king's counselors, being gathered together, saw these men, upon whose bodies the fire had no power, nor was a hair of their head singed, neither were their coats altered, nor the smell of fire had passed on them. Then Nebuchadnezzar spoke and said, "Blessed is the Elohim of Shadrach, Meshach, and Abednego, who has sent his angel, and delivered his slaves that trusted in him, and have frustrated the king's word, and yielded their bodies, that they might not serve nor worship any Elohim, except their own Elohim. Therefore I make a decree, that every people, nation, and language, that speaks anything amiss against the Elohim of Shadrach, Meshach, and Abednego, will be cut in pieces, and their houses will be made a dunghill, because there is no other Elohim that can deliver after this sort." Then the king promoted Shadrach, Meshach, and Abednego, in the province of Babylon, Nebuchadnezzar the king, to all people, nations, and languages that live in all the earth, "Peace be multiplied to you. I thought it good to show the signs and wonders that the Most High Elohim has performed toward me. How great are his signs! And how mighty are his wonders! His kingdom is an age-lasting kingdom, and his dominion is from generation to generation. I Nebuchadnezzar was at rest in my house, and flourishing in my palace, I saw a dream that made me afraid, and the thoughts upon my bed and the visions of my head troubled me. Therefore I made a decree to bring in all the wise ones of Babylon before me, that they might make known to me the interpretation of the dream. Then came in the magicians, the astrologers, the Chaldeans and the soothsayers, and I told the dream before them, but they did not make known to me its interpretation. But at the last Daniel came in before me, whose name was Belteshazzar, according to the name of my Elohim, and in whom is the spirit of the holy Elohim, and before him I told the dream saying, O Belteshazzar, master of the magicians, because I know that the spirit of the holy Elohim is in you, and no secret troubles you, tell me the visions of my dream that I have seen, and its interpretation. So were the visions of my head in my bed, I saw, and behold a tree in the middle of the earth, and its height was great. The tree grew and was strong, and the height of it reached to the skies, and the sight of it to the end of all the earth. The leaves of it were beautiful, and its fruit abundant, and in it was food for all. The animals of the field had shadow under it, and the flying creatures of the sky lived in its boughs, and all flesh was fed of it. I saw in the visions of my head upon my bed, and behold, a watcher and a holy one came down from the skies. He cried aloud and declared, Cut down the tree, and cut off its branches, shake off its leaves, and scatter its fruit. Let the animals get away from under it, and the flying creatures from its branches. Nevertheless leave the stump of its roots in the earth, even with a band of iron and brass, in the tender grass of the field. And let it be wet with the dew of the sky, and let its portion be with the animals in the grass of the earth. Let his heart be changed from man's, and let an animal's heart be given to him, and let 7 times pass over him. This matter is by the decree of the watchers, and a demand by the word of the holy ones. To the intent that the living may know that the Most High rules in the kingdom of men, and gives it to whomever he will, and sets up over it the basest of men. This dream I King Nebuchadnezzar have seen. You now, O Belteshazzar, declare its interpretation, inasmuch as all the wise ones of my kingdom are not able to make known to me its interpretation, but you are able, because the spirit of the holy Elohim is in you. Then Daniel, whose name was Belteshazzar, was astonished for 1 hour, and his thoughts troubled him. The king spoke and said, Belteshazzar, let not the dream, or its interpretation trouble you. Belteshazzar answered and said, My lord, the dream is for them that hate you, and its interpretation for your enemies. The tree that you saw, which grew and was strong, whose height reached into the skies, and its sight to all the earth, whose leaves were beautiful and its fruit abundant, and in it was food for all, under which the animals of the field lived, and upon whose branches the flying creatures of the sky had their habitation. It is you, O king, that has grown and become strong, because your greatness has grown, and reached into the sky, and your dominion to the ends of the earth. And in it the king saw a watcher and a holy one coming down from the skies and saying, Cut the tree down and destroy it. Yet leave the stump of its roots in the earth, even with a band of iron and bronze, in the tender grass of the field. And let it be wet with the dew of the sky, and let his portion be with the beasts of the field, until 7 times pass over him. This is the interpretation, O king, and this is the decree of the Most High that has come upon my lord the king, that they will drive you from men, and your dwelling will be with the animals of the field, and they will make you to eat grass as oxen, and they will wet you with the dew of the sky, and 7 times will pass over you, until you know that the Most High rules in the kingdom of men, and gives it to whoever he will. And where they commanded to leave the stump of the tree roots, your kingdom will be sure to you, after that you will have known that the skies do rule. Therefore, O king, let my counsel be acceptable to you, and break off your sins by righteousness, and your perversity by showing favor to the poor. It is a lengthening of your tranquility. All this came upon King Nebuchadnezzar. At the end of 12 months he walked in the palace of the kingdom of Babylon. The king spoke and said, Is not this great Babylon, that I have built for the house of the kingdom by the might of my power, and for the honor of my majesty? While the word was in the king's mouth, there fell a voice from the skies, saying, O King Nebuchadnezzar, to you it is spoken, the kingdom has departed from you. And they will drive you from men, and your dwelling will be with the animals of the field. They will make you to eat grass as oxen, and 7 times will pass over you, until you know that the Most High rules in the kingdom of men, and gives it to whoever he will. That same hour was the thing fulfilled upon Nebuchadnezzar, and he was driven from men, and did eat grass as oxen, and his body was wet with the dew of the sky, until his hairs were grown like eagle's feathers, and his nails like bird's claws. And at the end of the days I Nebuchadnezzar lifted up my eyes to the sky, and my understanding returned to me, and I blessed the Most High, and I praised and honored him that lives for the ages, whose dominion is an age-lasting dominion, and his kingdom is from generation to generation, and all the inhabitants of the earth are accounted as nothing, and he does according to his will in the army of the cosmos, and among the inhabitants of the world, and none can strike his hand or say to him, What are you doing? At the same time my reason returned to me, and for the glory of my kingdom my honor and splendor returned to me, and my counselors and my nobles sought for me, and I was established in my kingdom, and surpassing majesty was added to me. Now I Nebuchadnezzar praise and extol and honor the King of the cosmos, all whose works are truth, and his ways judgment, and those that walk in pride he is able to abase. Belshazzar the king made a great feast to 1,000 of his nobles, and drank wine before the 1,000. Belshazzar, whiles he tasted the wine, commanded to bring the golden and silver vessels that his dad Nebuchadnezzar had taken out of the temple that was in Jerusalem, that the king, and his princes, his wives, and his concubines, might drink from them. Then they brought the golden vessels that were taken out of the temple of the house of Elohim that was at Jerusalem, and the king, and his princes, his wives, and his concubines drank from them. They drank wine, and praised the Elohim of gold, silver, bronze, iron, wood, and of stone. In the same hour came forth fingers of a man's hand, and wrote opposite the candlestick upon the plaster of the wall of the king's palace, and the king saw the part of the hand that wrote. Then the king's appearance was changed, and his thoughts troubled him, so that the joints of his hips were loosed, and his knees hit one against another. The king cried aloud to bring in the astrologers, the Chaldeans, and the soothsayers. And the king spoke, and said to the wise ones of Babylon, Whoever will read this writing, and show me its interpretation, will be clothed with scarlet, and have a chain of gold put around his neck, and will be the third ruler in the kingdom. Then came in all the king's wise ones, but they could not read the writing, nor make known to the king its interpretation. Then was King Belshazzar greatly troubled, and his appearance was altered in him, and his nobles were perplexed. Now the queen, by reason of the words of the king and his nobles, came into the banquet house, and the queen spoke and said, O king, live to antiquity, let not your thoughts trouble you or let your appearance be altered. There's a man in your kingdom in whom is the spirit of the holy Elohim, and, in the days of your dad, light, and understanding, and wisdom, as the wisdom of the deities, was found in him, and King Nebuchadnezzar your dad, chief of the scribes, enchanters, Chaldeans, soothsayers, established him, your dad, O king, inasmuch as an excellent spirit, and knowledge, and understanding, interpreting of dreams, and showing of hard sentences, and dissolving of doubts, were found in this same Daniel, whom the king named Belteshazzar. Now let Daniel be called, and he will show its interpretation. Then was Daniel brought in before the king. And the king spoke and said to Daniel, Are you that Daniel that are of the children of the captivity of Judah, whom the king my dad brought out of Juri? I have even heard of you, that the spirit of Elohim is in you, and that light and understanding and excellent wisdom is found in you. And now the wise ones, the astrologers, have been brought in before me, that they should read this writing, and make known to me its interpretation, but they could not show the interpretation of the thing, and I have heard of you, that you can make interpretations, and dissolve doubts. Now if you can read the writing and make known to me its interpretation, you will be clothed with scarlet, and have a chain of gold put around your neck, and will be the third ruler in the kingdom. Then Daniel answered and said before the king, Let your gifts be to yourself, and give your rewards to another, yet I will read the writing to the king, and make known to him its interpretation. O king, the Most High Elohim gave Nebuchadnezzar your dad a kingdom, majesty, glory, and honor, and for the majesty that he gave him, all people, nations, and languages, trembled and feared before him. Whom he would, he killed, and whom he would, he kept alive, and whom he would, he set up, and whom he would, he put down. But when his heart was lifted up, and his mind hardened in pride, he was deposed from his kingly throne, and they took his glory from him, and he was driven from the sons of men, and his heart was made like the animals, and his dwelling was with the wild donkeys. They fed him with grass like oxen, and his body was wet with the dew of the sky, until he knew that the Most High Elohim ruled in the kingdom of men, and that he appoints over it whomever he will. And you his son, O Belshazzar, have not humbled your heart, though you knew all this, but have lifted up yourself against the king of the cosmos, and they have brought the vessels of his temple before you and your nobles, your wives, and your concubines have drunk wine in them, and you have praised the Elohim of silver, gold, bronze, iron, wood, and stone, which see not, more hear, more know. And the Elohim in whose hand your breath is, and whose are all your ways, you have not glorified. Then was the part of the hand sent from him, and this writing was written. And this is the writing that was written, Mene, Mene, Tekel, Upharsin. This is the interpretation of the thing, Mene, Elohim has numbered your kingdom, and finished it. Tekel, you are weighed in the balances, and are found deficient. Peres, your kingdom is divided, and given to the Medes and Persians. Then commanded Belshazzar, and they clothed Daniel with scarlet, and put a chain of gold around his neck, and made a proclamation concerning him, that he should be the third ruler in the kingdom. In that night was Belshazzar the king of the Chaldeans killed. And Darius the Median took the kingdom, being about 62 years old. It pleased Darius to set over the kingdom 120 princes that should be over the whole kingdom, and over these 3 presidents, of whom Daniel was first, that the princes might give accounts to them, and the king should have no damage. Then this Daniel was preferred above the presidents and princes, because an excellent mind was in him, and the king thought to set him over the whole realm. Then the presidents and princes desired to find occasion against Daniel concerning the kingdom, but they could find no matter or fault, inasmuch as he was faithful, neither was there any error or fault found in him. Then these men said, We will not find any occasion against this Daniel, except we find it against him concerning the law of his Elohim. Then these presidents and princes assembled together to the king, and said to him, King Darius, live for antiquity. All the presidents of the kingdom, the governors, princes, counselors, and the captains, have consulted together to establish a royal statute, and to make a firm decree, that whoever will ask a petition of any Elohim or man for 30 days, except of you, O king, he will be cast into the den of lions. Now, O king, establish the decree and sign the writing, that it be not altered, according to the law of the Medes and Persians that does not alter. Then King Darius signed the writing and the decree. Now when Daniel knew that the writing was signed, he went into his house, and his windows being open in his chamber toward Jerusalem, he kneeled upon his knees 3 times a day, and prayed, and gave thanks before his Elohim, as he had done before. Then these men assembled, and found Daniel praying and making supplication before his Elohim. Then they came near, and spoke before the king concerning the king's decree. Have you not signed a decree, that every one that will ask a petition of any Elohim or man within 30 days, except of you, O king, will be cast into the den of lions? The king answered and said, The thing is true, according to the law of the Medes and Persians that does not alter. Then they answered and said before the king, That Daniel which is of the children of the captivity of Judah, regards you not, O king, nor the decree that you have signed, but makes his petition 3 times a day. Then the king, when he heard these words, was greatly displeased with himself, and set his heart on Daniel to deliver him, and he labored until the going down of the sun to deliver him. Then these men assembled to the king and said to the king, Know, O king, what the law of the Medes and Persians is, that no decree or statute that the king establishes may be altered. Then the king commanded, and they brought Daniel and cast him into the den of lions. Now the king spoke and said to Daniel, Your Elohim whom you serve continually, he will deliver you. And a stone was brought, and laid upon the mouth of the den, and the king sealed it with his own signet, and with the signet of his nobles, that the purpose might not be changed concerning Daniel. Then the king went to his palace, and passed the night fasting, neither were instruments of music brought before him, and his sleep went from him. Then the king arose very early in the morning, and went in quickly to the den of lions. And when he came to the den, he cried with a grieving voice to Daniel, and the king spoke and said to Daniel, O Daniel, slave of the living Elohim, is your Elohim, whom you serve continually, able to deliver you from the lions? Then Daniel replied to the king, O king, live for antiquity. My Elohim has sent his angel, and has shut the lions' mouths, that they have not hurt me, inasmuch as before him innocence was found in me, and also before you, O king, have I done no harm. Then was the king exceedingly glad for him, and commanded that they should take Daniel up out of the den. So Daniel was taken up out of the den, and no manner of injury was found on him, because he believed in his Elohim. Then the king commanded, and they brought those men that had accused Daniel, and they cast them into the den of lions, them, their children, and their wives. And the lions had the mastery of them, and broke all their bones in pieces or whenever they came to the bottom of the den. Then King Darius wrote to all people, nations, and languages that live in the entire world, Peace be multiplied to you. I make a decree, that in every dominion of my kingdom men tremble and fear before the Elohim of Daniel, because he is the living Elohim and steadfast for the ages, and his kingdom which will not be destroyed, and his dominion will be even to the end. He delivers and rescues, and he works signs and wonders in the cosmos and in earth, who has delivered Daniel from the power of the lions. So this Daniel prospered in the reign of Darius, and in the reign of Cyrus the Persian. In the first year of Belshazzar king of Babylon, Daniel had a dream and visions of his head upon his bed. Then he wrote the dream, and told the sum of the matter. Daniel spoke and said, I saw in my vision by night, and behold, the 4 winds of the sky strove upon the great sea. And 4 great beasts came up from the sea, diverse one from another. The first was like a lion, and had eagle's wings. I watched until the wings of it were plucked, and it was lifted up from the earth, and made to stand upon its feet as a man, and a man's heart was given to it. And behold another beast, a second, like a bear, and it raised up itself on one side, and it had 3 ribs in the mouth of it between its teeth, and they said to it, Arise, devour much flesh. After this I observed, and lo another, like a leopard that had upon the back of it 4 wings of a fowl. The beast had also 4 heads, and dominion was given to it. After this I saw in the night visions, and behold a fourth beast, dreadful and terrible, and strong exceedingly, and it had great iron teeth, it devoured and broke in pieces, and stamped the residue with its feet. And it was diverse from all the beasts that were before it, and it had 10 horns. I considered the horns, and behold, there came up among them another little horn, before whom there were 3 of the first horns plucked up by its roots, and behold, in this horn were eyes like the eyes of man, and a mouth speaking great things. I beheld until the thrones were cast down, and the Ancient of Days did sit, whose garment was white as snow, and the hair of his head like the pure wool. His throne was like the fiery flame, and his wheels as burning fire. A fiery river issued and came forth from before him, thousands ministered to him, and 10,000 by 10,000 stood before him. The judgment was set, and the books were opened. I was seeing, then, because of the voice of the great words that the horn is speaking, I was seeing until that the beast was slain, and his body has been destroyed, and given to the burning fire. As concerning the rest of the beasts, they had their dominion taken away, yet their lives were prolonged for a season and time. I saw in the night visions, and behold, one like the Son of Man came with the cloud mass of the skies, and came to the Ancient of Days, and they brought him near before him. And there was given him dominion, and glory, and a kingdom, that all people, nations, and languages, should serve him. His dominion is an age-lasting dominion that will not pass away, and his kingdom that which will not be destroyed. I Daniel was grieved in my mind in the midst of my body, and the visions of my head troubled me. I came near to one of them that stood by, and asked him the truth of all this. So he told me, and made me know the interpretation of the things. These great beasts, which are 4 kings that will arise out of the earth. But the saints of the Most High will take the kingdom, and possess the kingdom for the ages, even for the ages of the ages. Then I would know the truth of the 4th beast that was altered from all the others, exceedingly terrible, whose teeth were of iron, and his nails of bronze, that devoured, broke in pieces and stamped the residue with his feet, and of the 10 horns that were in his head, and of the other that came up, and before whom 3 fell, even of that horn that had eyes, and a mouth that spoke very great things, whose look was greater than his companions. I observed, and the same horn made war with the saints and prevailed against them, until the Ancient of Days came, and judgment was given to the saints of the Most High, and the time came that the saints took possession of the kingdom. So he said, the 4th beast will be the 4th kingdom on earth that will be altered from all kingdoms, and will devour the whole earth, and will trample it down, and break it in pieces. And the 10 horns out of this kingdom are 10 kings that will arise, and another will rise after them, and he will be altered from the first, and he will subdue 3 kings. And he will speak great words against the Most High, and will wear out, harass constantly, the saints of the Most High, and think to alter times and laws. And they will be given into his hand until about a year, 2 years, and a half year, 3.5 years. But the judgment will sit, and they will take away his dominion, to consume it and to destroy it unto the end. And the kingdom and dominion, and the greatness of the kingdom under the whole cosmos, will be given to the people of the saints of the Most High, whose kingdom is an age-lasting kingdom, and all dominions will serve and obey him. Here is the conclusion of the matter. As for me Daniel, my thoughts much troubled me and my splendor inside me changed, but I kept the matter in my heart. In the 3rd year of the reign of King Belshazzar a vision appeared to me, even to me Daniel, after what appeared to me at the first. And I saw in a vision, and it came to pass, when I saw, that I was at Shushan in the palace that is in the province of Elam. And I saw in a vision, and I was by the river of Ulai. Then I lifted up my eyes, and saw, and behold, there stood before the river a ram that had 2 horns, and the 2 horns were high, but one was higher than the other, and the higher came up last. I saw the ram pushing westward, and northward, and southward, so that no beast might stand before him, neither was there any that could deliver out of his hand, but he did according to his will, and became great. And as I was considering, look, a he-goat came from the west on the surface of the whole earth, but touched not the ground, and the goat had a notable horn between his eyes. And he came to the ram that had 2 horns that I had seen standing before the river, and ran to him in the fury of his power. And I saw him come close unto the ram, and he was moved with bitterness against him, and struck the ram, and broke his 2 horns. And there was no power in the ram to stand before him, but he cast him down to the ground and stamped upon him, and there was none that could deliver the ram out of his hand. And the young he-goat has exerted itself very much, and when it is strong, broken has been the great horn, and come up as a vision of 4 in its place, at the 4 winds of the sky. And out of one of them came forth a little horn, which waxed exceedingly great, toward the south, and toward the east, and toward the glorious land. And it grew great, even to the army of the cosmos, and it cast down some of the army and of the stars to the ground, and trampled upon them. Yes, he magnified himself even to the captain of the army, and by him the daily sacrifice was taken away, and the established place of his sanctuary was cast down. And an army was given him against the daily sacrifice by reason of transgression, and it cast down the truth to the ground, and it produced and prospered. Then I heard one saint speaking, and another saint said to that certain saint that spoke, How long will be the vision concerning the daily sacrifice, and the transgression of desolation, to give both the sanctuary and the army to be trampled underfoot? And he replied to me, Unto 2,300 days, then will the sanctuary be cleansed. And it came to pass, when I, even I Daniel, had seen the vision, and desired to know its meaning, then behold, there stood before me as the appearance of a man. And I heard a man's voice between the banks of Ulai that called and said, Gabriel, make this man to understand the vision. So he came near where I stood, and when he came, I was afraid, and fell on my face, but he said to me, Understand, O Son of Man, because of the time of the end will be the vision. Now as he was speaking with me, I was in a deep sleep on my face toward the ground, but he touched me, and set me upright. And he said, Look, I will make you know what will be in the after part of the indignation, because at the time appointed is the end. The ram that you saw having 2 horns are the kings of Media and Persia. And the rough goat is the king of Gracia, and the great horn that is between his eyes is the first king. And that being broken, stand up do 4 in its place, 4 kingdoms from the nation do stand up, and not in its power. And in the latter time of their kingdom, when the transgressors are come to the full, a king of fierce presence and understanding dark sentences, will stand up. And his power will be mighty, but not by his own power, and he will destroy wonderfully, and will advance and acquire, and will destroy the mighty and the holy people. And through his policy also he will cause craft to prosper in his hand, and he will magnify himself in his heart, and by peace will destroy many. He will also stand up against the prince of princes, but he will be broken without hand. And the vision of the sunset and the sunrise that was told is true, therefore shut up the vision, because it will be for many days. And I Daniel fainted, and was sick for certain days. Afterward I got up, and did the king's business, and I was appalled at the vision, but no one understood it. In the 1st year of Darius the son of Ahasuerus, of the posterity of the Medes that became king over the realm of the Chaldeans, in the 1st year of his reign I Daniel understood by books the number of the years in which the word of Yhwh came to Jeremiah the prophet, that he would accomplish 70 years in the desolation of Jerusalem. And I set my face to Adonai Elohim, to seek by prayer and supplications, with fasting, sackcloth, and ashes, and I prayed to Yhwh Elohim, and made my confession and said, O Adonai, the great and dreadful Elohim, observing the covenant and goodness to them that love him, and to them that observe his commandments, we have sinned, and have committed wrong, and have done wickedly, and have rebelled, even by departing from your precepts and from your judgments, neither have we listened to your slaves the prophets that spoke in your name to our kings, our princes, and our forefathers, and to all the people of the land. O Adonai, righteousness belongs to you, but to us confusion of faces, as it is this day. To the men of Judah, and to the inhabitants of Jerusalem and to all Israel, that are near and that are far off, through all the countries where you have driven them, because of their trespass that they have trespassed against you. O Adonai, to us belongs confusion of face, to our kings, to our princes, and to our forefathers, because we have sinned against you. To Adonai Elohim belongs compassion and forgiveness, though we have rebelled against him, neither have we obeyed the voice of Yhwh Elohim, to walk in his laws that he set before us by his slaves the prophets. Yes, all Israel has transgressed your law, even by departing, that they might not obey your voice, therefore the curse is poured upon us, and the oath that is written in the Torah of Moses the slave of Elohim, because we have sinned against him. And he has confirmed his words that he spoke against us, and against our judges that judged us, by bringing upon us a great calamity, because under the whole cosmos has not been done as has been done upon Jerusalem. As it is written in the Torah of Moses, this entire calamity has come upon us, yet entreated we not our prayers before Yhwh our Elohim so that we might turn from our depravities, and understand your truth. Therefore has Yhwh watched upon the calamity, and brought it upon us, because Yhwh Elohim is righteous in all his works that he does, because we obeyed not his voice. And now, O Adonai Elohim, that has brought your people out of the land of Egypt with a mighty hand, and has obtained yourself renown, as at this day, we have sinned, we have done wickedly. O Adonai, according to all your righteousness I beseech you, let your anger and your fury be turned away from your city Jerusalem, your holy mountain, because for our sins and for the depravities of our forefathers, Jerusalem and your people are become a scorn to all that are around us. Now therefore, O our Elohim, hear the prayer of your slave and his supplications, and cause your presence to shine upon your sanctuary that is desolate, for Adonai's sake. O my Elohim, incline your ear and hear, open your eyes and see our desolation, and the city that is called by your name, because we do not present our supplications before you for our righteousness, but for your compassion which is great. O Adonai, hear, O Adonai, forgive, O Adonai, listen and do, defer not, for your own sake, O my Elohim, because your city and your people are called by your name. And while I am speaking, and praying, and confessing my sin, and the sin of my people Israel, and causing my supplication to fall before YHWH Elohim, for the holy mount of my Elohim, yes, while I was speaking in prayer, even the male Gabriel, whom I had seen in the vision at the beginning, being caused to fly swiftly, touched me around the time of the evening offering. And he informed me and talked with me, and said, O Daniel, I am now come forth to give you skill and understanding. At the beginning of your supplications the commandment came forth, and I am come to show you, because you are greatly beloved, therefore understand the matter, and consider the vision. Now 70 weeks are determined upon your people and upon your holy city, to finish the transgression, and to make an end of sins, and to make a covering for depravity, and to bring in age-lasting righteousness, and to seal up the vision and prophecy, and to anoint the most holy. Know therefore and understand, that from the going forth of the commandment to restore and to rebuild Jerusalem unto the Messiah the Prince will be 7 weeks, and 62 weeks, the street will be rebuilt again, and the wall, even in distressful times. And after 62 weeks will Messiah be cut off, but not for himself, and the people of the Prince that will come will destroy the city and the sanctuary, and the end will be with a flood, and to the end of the war desolation is determined. And he has strengthened a covenant with many, 1 week, and in the middle of the week he causes sacrifice and offering to cease, and by the wing of abominations he is making desolate, even until the consummation, and what is determined is poured on the desolate one. In the 3rd year of Cyrus king of Persia a thing was revealed to Daniel, whose name was called Belteshazzar, and the thing was true, but the time appointed was long, and he understood the thing, and had understanding of the vision. In those days I Daniel was mourning 3 full weeks. I ate no pleasant food, neither came flesh or wine in my mouth, neither did I anoint myself at all, until 3 whole weeks were fulfilled. And in the 24th day of the 1st month, as I was by the side of the great river, that is Hiddekel, then I lifted up my eyes and looked, and behold a certain man clothed in linen, whose hips were girded with fine gold of Uphaz, his body also was like the semi-precious gem, and his face as the appearance of lightning, and his eyes as lamps of supernatural fire, and his arms and his feet like in color to polished bronze, and the voice of his words like the sound of a multitude. And I Daniel alone saw the vision, because the men that were with me saw not the vision, but a great quaking fell upon them so that they fled to hide themselves. Therefore I was left alone, and saw this great vision, and there remained no strength in me, because my splendor was turned inside me into ruin, and I retained no strength. Yet I heard the voice of his words, and when I heard the voice of his words, then was I in a deep sleep on my face, and my face toward the ground. And see, a hand touched me that set me on my knees and on the palms of my hands. And he said to me, O Daniel, a man greatly beloved, understand the words that I speak to you, and stand upright, because to you I am now sent. And when he had spoken this word to me, I stood trembling. Then he said to me, Fear not, Daniel, because from the first day that you did set your heart to understand, and to afflict yourself before your Elohim, your words were heard, and I am come because of your words. But the prince of the kingdom of Persia withstood me 21 days, but lo, Michael, one of the chief princes, came to help me, and I remained there with the kings of Persia. Now I am come to make you understand what will befall your people in the last days, because yet the vision is for many days. And when he speaks with me about these things, I have set my face toward the earth, and have been silent, and behold one like in the likeness of the sons of men touched my lips, then I opened my mouth and spoke, and said to him that stood before me, O my master, by the vision my sorrows are turned upon me, and I have retained no strength. And how is the slave of this my lord able to speak with this my lord? As for me, now there remains in me no power, yes, breath has not been left in me. Then there came again and touched me one like the appearance of a man, and he strengthened me, and said, O man greatly beloved, fear not, peace be with you, be strong, yes, be strong. And when he had spoken to me, I was strengthened and said, Let my Lord speak, because you have strengthened me. Then he said, Do you know why I come to you? And now I will return to fight with the prince of Persia, and when I am gone forth, lo, the prince of Gracia will come. But I declare to you what is noted down in the writing of truth, and there is not one strengthening himself with me, concerning these, except Michael your head. Also, and the 1st year of Darius the Mede, even I, stood to confirm and to strengthen him. And now I will show you the truth. Behold, there will stand up yet 3 kings in Persia, and the 4th will be far richer than they all, and by his strength through his riches he will stir up all against the realm of Gracia. And a mighty king will stand up, that will rule with great dominion, and do according to his will. And when he will stand up, his kingdom will be broken, and will be divided toward the 4 winds of the sky, and not to his posterity, nor according to his dominion that he ruled, because his kingdom will be plucked up, even for others beside those. And the king of the south will be strong, and one of his princes, and he will be strong above him, and have dominion, his dominion will be a great dominion. And in the end of years they will join themselves together, because the king's daughter of the south will come to the king of the north to make an agreement. But she will not retain the power of the arm, neither will he stand, nor his arm, but she will be given up, and they that brought her, and he that engendered her, and he that strengthened her in these times. But out of a branch of her roots will one stand up in his estate that will come with an army, and will enter into the fortress of the king of the north, and will deal against them, and will prevail, and will also carry captives into Egypt their Elohim, with their princes, and with their precious vessels of silver and of gold, and he will continue more years than the king of the north. So the king of the south will come into his kingdom, and will return into his own land. But his sons will be stirred up, and will assemble a multitude of great forces, and one will certainly come, and overflow, and pass through, then will he return, and be stirred up, even to his fortress. And the king of the south will be moved with bitterness, and will come out and fight with him, even with the king of the north, and he will set forth a great multitude, but the multitude will be given into his hand. And when he has taken away the multitude, his heart will be lifted up, and he will cast down many 10,000s, but he will not be strengthened by it. Because the king of the north will return, and will set forth a multitude greater than the former, and at the end of the times a second time he does certainly come with a great army and with much riches. And in those times there will many stand up against the king of the south, also the robbers of your people will exalt themselves to establish the vision, but they will fall. So the king of the north will come, and cast up a siege mound, and capture a place of strongholds, and the arms of the south, China Sea Islands, will not withstand, neither his chosen people, neither will there be any strength to withstand. But he that comes against him will do according to his own will, and none will stand before him, and he will stand in the glorious land, which by his hand will be consumed. He will also set his face to enter with the strength of his whole kingdom, and upright ones with him, so will he do, and he will give him the daughter of women, corrupting her, but she will not stand on his side, nor is for him. Then will he turn his face to the isles, and will capture many of them, but a commander, on behalf of the chief, will cause the scorn he gives to stop, and will cause the scorn he gives to revert back upon himself. Then he will turn his face toward the stronghold of his own land, but he will stumble and fall, and not be found. Then will stand up in his estate a raiser of taxes in the glory of the kingdom, but within a few days he will be destroyed, neither in anger, nor in battle. And in his estate will stand up a vile person, to whom they will not give the honor of the kingdom, but he will come in peaceably and obtain the kingdom by flatteries. And with the arms of a flood will they be swept away from before him, and will be broken, yes, also the prince of the covenant. And after they join themselves unto him, he works deceit, and has increased, and has been strong by a few of the nation. He will enter peaceably even upon the fattest places of the province, and he will do what his ancestors have not done, nor his fathers' fathers, he will scatter among them the booty, and plunder, and riches. Yes, and he will forecast his devices against the strongholds, even for a time. And he will stir up his power and his courage against the king of the south with a great army. And the king of the south will be stirred up to battle with a very great and mighty army, but he will not stand, because they will forecast devices against him. Yes, they that feed of the portion of his food will destroy him, and his army will overflow, and many will fall down killed. And both these kings' hearts will be to do mischief, and they will speak lies at one table, but it will not prosper, for yet the end is at a time appointed. Then will he return into his land with great riches, and his heart will be against the holy covenant, and he will do exploits, and return to his own land. At the time appointed he will return, and come toward the south, but it will not be as the former, or as the latter. Because the ships of Kittim will come against him, therefore he will be grieved and return, and have indignation against the holy covenant, so will he do, he will even return, and have intelligence with them that forsake the holy covenant. And arms will stand on his part, and they will desecrate the sacred place of refuge, and will take away the daily sacrifice, and they will ascribe the abomination that makes desolate. And such as do wickedly against the covenant will he corrupt by flatteries, but the people that do know their Elohim will be strong, and do exploits. And they that understand among the people will instruct many, yet they will fall by the sword, and by flame, by captivity, and by plunder, many days. Now when they will fall, they will be helped with a little help, but many will cleave to them with flatteries. And some of them of understanding will fall, to refine them, and to purify, and to make them white, even to the time of the end, because it is still for a time appointed. And the king will do according to his will, and he will exalt himself, and magnify himself above every Elohim, and will speak marvelous things against the Elohim of Elohim, and will prosper until the indignation is accomplished, for what is determined will be done. Neither will he regard the deity of his fathers, nor the desire of women, nor regard any Elohim, because he will magnify himself above all. And to the Elohim of strongholds, on his station, he gives honor, yes, to a deity whom his fathers knew not he gives honor, with gold, and with silver, and with precious stone, and with desirable things. So will he do in the most strongholds with a strange Elohim, whom he will acknowledge and increase with glory, and he will cause them to rule over many, and will divide the land for gain. And at the time of the end will the king of the south push at him, and the king of the north will come against him like a whirlwind, with chariots, and with horsemen, and with many ships. And he will enter into the countries, and will overflow and pass over. He will enter also into the glorious land, and many countries will be overthrown, but these will escape out of his hand, even Edom, Moab, and the chief of the children of Ammon. He will stretch out his hand also upon the countries, and the land of Egypt will not escape. But he will have power over the treasures of gold and of silver, and over all the precious things of Egypt, and the Libyans and the Ethiopians will be at his steps. But tidings out of the east and out of the north will trouble him, therefore he will go out with great fury to destroy, and to devote to destruction many. And he will plant the tents of his palace between the seas and the glorious holy mountain, yet he will come to his end, and none will help him. And at that time will Michael stand up, the great prince that stands for the children of your people, and there will be a time of trouble, such as never was since there was a nation even to that same time. And at that time your people will be delivered, every one that will be found written in the book. And many of them that sleep in the dust of the earth will awake, some to age-lasting life, and some to shame and age-lasting aversion. And they that are wise will shine as the brightness of the firmament, and they that turn many to righteousness as the stars for the ages of the ages. But you, O Daniel, shut up the words, and seal the book, even to the time of the end. Many will run to and fro, and knowledge will be increased. Then I Daniel looked, and behold, there stood two others, the one on this side of the bank of the river, and the other on that side of the bank of the river. And one said to the man clothed in linen that was upon the waters of the river, How long will it be to the end of these wonders? And I heard the man clothed in linen that was upon the waters of the river, when he held up his right hand and his left hand to the cosmos, and adjured by him that lives for the ages that it will be for a time, times, and a half, 3.5 years, and when he will have accomplished to scatter the power of the holy people, all these things will be finished. And I heard, but I understood not. Then I said, O my master, what will be the end of these things? And he replied, Go your way, Daniel, because the words are closed up and sealed until the time of the end. Many will be purified and made white, and refined, but the wicked will do wickedly, and none of the wicked will understand, but the wise will understand. And from the time that the daily sacrifice will be taken away, and the abomination that makes desolate set up, there will be 1,290 days. Blessed is he that waits and comes to 1,335 days. But you go your way until the end, because you will rest and stand in your lot at the end of days.